Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the knitting book tag. This tag was created by Wild Book Garden, and I saw it on both Hannah's Books and Steve Donahue, and I will leave links to all three videos in the show notes down below. Prompt number 1, cast on. The first section you scope out in a bookstore, library, or online book shopping. So, starting with library, when I went to the library that I frequented, I would immediately go to the new releases, and I would scour them. Although if I had like a book on request to pick up, I probably would go pick that up first and then work my way back to the new releases before going to whatever section of the library I was particularly interested in visiting that day. As far as bookstores are concerned, it has been a while since I've physically gone to a bookstore. Although I did go to Barnes & Noble for my birthday, and I'll talk a bit about that on Weekly Reads, or also my November book haul. But when I went, I passed the new releases, and I went immediately to the fiction and poetry before I finally figured out where the history was, and I spent most of my time in the history, on the where the history is. Although maybe I should have spent a bit more time looking around, but I think when I go to particularly that it was whatever genre I'm most interested in or obsessed with at any given moment where I head to first. As far as online book shopping is concerned, I generally, it's whatever genre I'm most interested in at any given time is what I look for first. Prompt number 2, knit. Obviously a staple of knitting. A super hyped book that completely delivered for you. For this, I'm going to go with Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. It is a joint biography of both Abraham Lincoln as well as members of his cabinet who ran against him in the 1860 presidential election. It is a phenomenal work of history. It's been way too long since I last read it, and I really need to go back to it or revisit it, but it did deliver. Prompt number 3, Purl. As important as the knit stitch, but probably not as famous. Name a character you think deserves more love from the fandom, the author, other characters, etc. For this prompt, I'm going to go with Billy Kaplan, Wiccan from Marvel Comics. Billy Kaplan is a superhero. He is usually with the team called the Young Avengers, who are a team of Avengers legacies. In Wiccan's case, as well as the hero Speed's case, they are it's complicated reincarnations of the Scarlet Witch's children. There's another character is one of the Ant-Man's daughters who went by Stature, but she goes now by Stinger. There's Kate Bishop, who is Hawkeye, and then there are a few others. I think Wiccan really deserves a lot more attention from the fandom, particularly from authors. I mean, he really, and really the Young Avengers in general, should have a book. They are way, way past due for a book. And to be perfectly honest, the publishing history of the Young Avengers is infuriating, absolutely infuriating. They've really never had a long, sustained run. It's always been practically maxi series. And to a certain extent, I can get with their creator, Alan Heinberg, because he had a lot on his docket. And so he really couldn't devote as much time as he should have to the Young Avengers. But Marvel never really had a writer really do them justice for a long stretch. Um, so, yeah, I'll go with Wiccan and really the Young Avengers in general. Okay, prompt number 4, chart. A book or author you've been meaning to read, but somehow just haven't gotten around to it, and explain why. For this, I'm going to go with Percival Everett. I have heard a lot of really good things about him from a number of booktubers, and I've just never gotten around to reading him. I have 2 of his books in one wish list on Libris, and I think I may have a few on my Amazon wish list, but I've never gotten around to ordering anything by him, although that is changing. And you will, my November book haul will probably reflect that. And I'm looking forward to finally getting to him. Prompt number 5, double pointed needles, DPNs. Recommend a series you can actually read out of order, and one that people might think you can, but you actually can't. So for a series that you can read out of order, I would recommend the Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple series by Agatha Christie. Both Hercule Poirot and Miss Marple are Agatha Christie's most famous creations, and generally their books you can read in any which order you want, whether it's chronologically or at random. It doesn't really matter. They are standalone. A series that you actually can't read out of order, I don't know. Nothing is really coming to mind. So I will pass on that half of the question or prompt. Prompt number 6, Cables. A book you heard negative reviews for, but you ended up loving. I think I will go with Inglorious Empire by Priyamvada Gopal. It's a history of opposition to the British Empire from largely Britons. And it is a phenomenal work. And I've heard or read some criticisms of the book, but it really worked for me. Prompt number 7 is Skein. Why do we still sell yarn like this? A trope you can't stand. Let's see here. Trope I can't stand. I guess nothing is immediately popping out at me. I guess maybe like a hero who starts off being unambitious about being a hero. The hero who basically has to be pushed into doing whatever it is that plot needs them to do, rather than doing it enthusiastically, wanting to do it immediately, is one problem trope I don't like. I guess another one would be insta-love, that I would like a bit more development in that. Prompt number 8, gauge swatch. Share an author who is always a good fit for you. For this, I'm going to go with Jill Lepore. She is a historian who's, among her books, is These Truths, If Then, and The Secret History of Wonder Woman, all 3 of which I have read and loved, and I'm looking forward to reading more of her work. Prompt number 9, stitch marker. Share a specific scene that stands out clearly in your mind with no spoilers. Nothing is coming to mind, so I'll pass on this one. Prompt number 10, yarn weight. Super useful info to take in at a glance. Do you have some bookish taste buddies? This could be someone you have a really similar taste to in general, or for a specific kind of book. Not really, and not completely. Um, do I have uh, like somebody who completely matches me with taste, or even in some aspects of it? So, not really. Prompt number 11. That novelty yarn someone gifted you because they heard you like knitting, but it's impossible to work with. What's a book that looked perfect for you on paper, but just didn't work out? Check weekly reads. Oh, Egypt's Golden Couple by John Darnell and Colleen Darnell. On paper, it looks absolutely like something I would love. It's ancient Egypt in the late Bronze Age, but it did not work for me at all. So, yeah, that's going to be a fun review to write. But I'll talk a bit more about it tomorrow for weekly reads, although I'm planning on finishing it tonight. But, oh, no. Prompt number 12, Scarf. The perfect starter project. Recommend a good book for getting into a genre or kind of book. Well, let's see here. So, I don't know. It depends. Well, I guess for detective fiction or mystery, I would go obviously Sherlock Holmes. Although you can't go wrong with Agatha Christie either. For science fiction and fantasy, I would go with probably an anthology, like A Year's Best, or maybe one of the Vandermeer anthologies. I think that would probably be really good. Or Hartwell, David G. Hartwell. He's got some really good anthologies to kind of get like oriented in the genre. For literary fiction, I don't quite know, so I'll have to pass on that. History, it's really like whatever you really are interested in, and like finding a history on that and going from there, I think maybe. For manga, it depends on what you're interested in. Again, because I mean, manga's got everything. I tend to focus mostly on shonen, on science fiction and fantasy manga. Again, despite my issues with science fiction and fantasy the last 2 years, science fiction and fantasy is still my favorite genre of fiction, or genres of fiction. So, but I would go with like Death Note. I think would be a good one place to start. Cardcaptor Sakura would be a good place to start. Naruto, One Piece. Although with both Naruto and definitely One Piece, it would be a commitment because they're particular with One Piece, there are like 100 plus volumes. So if you want to dip your toe in, I mean, you could try like a first volume or two, or a shorter series, which like Death Note would be really good for. So yeah, where was, okay, 13. So prompt number 13, socks. Handmade socks are way harder than they look. Talk about an underappreciated author who deserves more hype? I would go with Kenneth Lee. She was a science fiction and fantasy author who worked from the 70s into the very early 2010s, whose work never quite got the attention it deserved, and who, towards the end of her career, found it incredibly difficult to continue writing. That publishers really were not interested in her work, which is a shame. Prompt number 14, cast off. A weirdly specific thing you love could be a trope, something in book construction, etc. I like magic. I like magic. I think I'll go with that. Finally, prompt number 15, crafting party. Honestly, one of the best parts of any hobby is sharing it with friends. Tag some people who craft or who might like to answer the question. So, if you'd like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged. And that concludes the knitting book tag. I'll be back tomorrow with weekly reads. It will probably be an earlier one like last week because I think my mom has some plans for her birthday that might make it a bit difficult to film later in the evening like I like to do for weekly reads. Also, sorry about that. I'm planning on finishing off Egypt's Golden Couple not today. So, yeah, pretty much have 2 books to talk about, and then I can preview what I'll be reading for over the weekend and into next week, earlier in the day. So that, I think, will be my plan. So anyway, BookTube, that's all I've got for today. So have a great afternoon and stay safe.